All right, so shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to start off by saying Brakatham, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah Bahashem Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the whole feed elect, start down there 44,000, shalom. All right, so the title of this lesson would be Mingled with the Other Nations. Mingled with other nations, right? And as I Lord willing, right? I want to go into a definition of that mingled real fast. Mingle. Definition. Right? It says mix or cause to mix together, right? Let's see. It says to bring or mix together or with something else, usually without fundamental loss of identity, right? But the point is, right, let's see, in the Bible, mingle means to mix, blend, or combine elements, often with negative connotations of contamination, idolatry, or judgment, right? But also used positively to describe the deep union of divinity and humanity and Mashiach, or the spirit with believers. But the point is, right, is, I wanted to go into how, Yahweh Shah, he gave us laws, commandments for us to separate ourselves for the other nations. But our people mingled with these other nations, right? They mixed themselves in, they joined themselves in, right? And these people was doing abominations in the land, that Yahweh Shah, told us not to do. Let's see, necro, let me see. Necromancy. I know it's in this really was on my spirit. One of the brothers had sent a video to our group chat. I was watching the video. It was some brothers. And some elder brothers that was going into necromancy, right? And when you understand it, Yahweh Shah told us not to do that. And when you understand that Ephi, what they call it, right? That's what they be doing, praising the dead, giving honor to the dead or whatnot. And that's what you had those Canaanites doing. That's why Yahweh Shah told us what? To destroy. And when you think about it, even today, the Canaanites are so-called Africans. Well, that's mainly where that Ephi stuff come from. They get it from the African people, so-called Africans, right? Or get it from the Africans, right? And it just on my spirit, I don't know too much about that Ephi thing to even try to speak on or go into it, Lord willing. Just using this for edification to go into the spirit of how, our nation mingled themselves with the other nations when Yahweh Shah gave us the laws, so we wouldn't mingle ourselves. We wouldn't take part in those things. So we wouldn't take part in the abominations they were doing, right? Let me see. Okay, right here. So I started verse, this is Deuteronomy 18. And I start at verse 9, right? It says, when thou art coming to the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee, right? Thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations, right? That's why he told us to destroy them, get rid of them, right? It says, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his sons or his daughters to pass through the fire, or the use of divination or observer of times, or an enchanter or a witch, or a charmer or a consulter with familiar spirits, a wizard or a necromancer, right? And you see Jake got that going on today, playing with the dead things that said praising dead or whatnot, right? I got a definition of let's see. We look at the definition of it real fast. Suppose a practice of communicating with the dead, especially in order to predict the future, and that's what those. I don't think I can say. It was about the Ephi, those people who had that Ephi, those beads, whatnot. That's what they do. They give praise to the quote unquote our ancestors, the dead, right? They give them praise to practice, communicate with them, do those things, they do those sacrifice things, and stuff, which is all demonic, right? But that's what you have going off in our land when Jake mingled himself with the other nations, start doing abominations other, which Yahweh Shah told us not to do, right? So verse 12, right, says, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, Lord, thy power, Salakia, unto the abominations to the Lord Yahweh, and because of these abominations, Salakia, because of these abominations, right, the Lord Yahweh, thy power, doeth, excuse me, doeth drive them out from before thee, right? It says, thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy power, right? And when you understand it, right, Yahweh Shah, let's go to Leviticus. Matter of fact, I want to go Deuteronomy 4 and 6, right? I'm going to read this real fast, right? Deuteronomy 4, let me see. Deuteronomy, I started verse 5, right? It says, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord Yahweh, my power commanded me. This was Moses writing to the Israelite, right? You know, I forgot. I was just watching the other video. I want to say it's called the Torah, right? The books of Moses, the book of the law, right? Let's see. What is the... Let's see if it come up. Let's see if it come up. Yeah, Torah. Right? But it's the book of the commandments, right? What Moses written, or what Yahweh gave to Moses to tell to the Israelites, right? To the Hebrew Israelites when he saved us from Egypt, right? So it says, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord Yahweh, my power, right, commanded me that you should do so in the land where you go possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is wise and understanding people, right? So the how about he gave us the laws and commandments. Why? So we wouldn't go do these things, these other nations, because these other nations are bought out, going off having all these abominations. Well, Jake went and mingled themselves. Let's continue to show, we'll continue to bring out precepts to show that, how about he wants us to be separate from the other nations. And when you even understand it through the Spirit, that's why, when we fail, right? That's why when we fail, right? That's why when we fail, right? Lamentations 2:15, right? That's when we fail, right? It says this, all that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head. The daughter of Jerusalem saying, is this the city that the men call perfection, the beauty, the joy of the whole earth? Because that's what we were, right? Under King David, right? Under King David, right? King Solomon, before Solomon went off, right? Things that such, right? And after he passed, when the kingdom split and whatnot. But you got to think, you had the Romans come in later on, 6, 7 AD, and destroy the rules. And when we failed, they all clapped at us, right? You had the northern kingdom already led it captive into under the Syrians, right? Was later it came over here to the Americas. You had the southern kingdom, which the great diaspora, or you had the Romans come in, and our people scattered all over, right? So now our nation, the depression that we call beauty, now it's scattered all over. Now we falling away, and when we fail, he's telling like, hey, this was the people call the perfection of beauty. Is this supposed to be the righteous people, the honored people, right? It's supposed to be perfect people, which we were. And Lord willing, we want to get back to that. In the kingdom, we're going to receive that perfection in the kingdom, right? Because you understand it, we're going to be changed to spiritual bodies, right? But let's go to Leviticus, right? 20 and 25. And that's why you have the elect. That's why Yahweh said what? If it wasn't for the elect, right? If it wasn't for the elect, it wasn't for that remnant, we would have been destroyed. Because you got Jake who mingled and gave in to all the ways of the other nations. They thought it was fit. They thought it was best fit for them. They thought it was best for them to do that, just to go ahead and give in to these nations, right? Romans 7 tells you what? The law is holy. Holy meaning separate. Yahweh did he not tell us that we're a separate people set unto him? How are we separate? He gave us the laws, commandments, not to do these abominations, these things that these other nations had going on, right? But Jake still fell in and did those things, right? So this is Leviticus 20 and 25, right? That's why I started verse 24. It says, but I have said unto you, ye shall inherit their land, right? It says, I will give it unto you to possess it in the land that floweth with milk and honey. I am the Lord Yahweh, your power, which I have separated you from other people. Ye shall therefore put difference between clean beasts and unclean, and between unclean fowls and clean, and ye shall not make your souls abominable by beast or by fowl or by any manner of living thing that creepeth on the ground, which I have separated you from you as unclean. Right? It says, and ye shall be holy unto me. What does holy mean? Separate. Deuteronomy 7:6, Deuteronomy 14:2, Deuteronomy 32:8, right? Where you shall be holy unto me, talking about the nation of Israel, right? Hebrew Israelites, for I, the Lord Yahweh, am holy, and have severed you, have separated you, have cut you off from the other nations. Severed mean like, if you sever something, you split it. When you cut it, you take this piece, they take that piece. He severed us. He took us, right? Jacob is a lot of his inheritance. When he separated the people, right? Let's go to that real fast. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 8, it says, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is life, his heritage. So when he severed her, right, Jacob is life. Jacob, he chose Jacob. Right? That's why Isaiah 14:1, I was yet choose Israel and take them in their own land. Right? So about Leviticus. Right? Verse 26 again, it says, "You shall be holy unto me, for I am the Lord. I the Lord, am holy." Right? I, the Lord Yahweh, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that you should be mine. Right? So we were supposed to walk in that perfection. Right? What was you read in Deuteronomy 18 when it was talking about how the abomination thing they were doing in that land? What did it say? Right? It says, "Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy power," and that's what we, But ultimately, we understand it. How about how shall we could be perfect in these fleshly bodies? Right? That's why we're going to be changed to spiritual bodies. We're going to receive that perfection in the kingdom. Right? But you have that remnant who's walking in that narrow passage, who being made perfect through those suffering, going through that hardship, going through that pain and stuff. But that's a lesson for another day. Because today I'm going into how what how about how shall I say? Isaiah 5:4, right? I started verse 3. Matter of fact, I started verse 1, right? It says, "Now I was saying to my well-beloved, a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My well-beloved hath a vineyard and a very fruit hill. He fenced it and gathered out the stones thereof and planted it with a choice vine and built a tower in the midst of it and also made a wine press therein. He looked that it should bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes." So we're supposed to bring forth, what is that, Jeremiah 2? We're supposed to bring forth grape, but it brought forth wild grapes. Because why? We're that vineyard, Yahweh planted, right? We're that vineyard. Did not say, Yahweh is the husbandman, Yahweh is that seed, and we're those branches that grow off of it. We're that vineyard that was put with. Instead of bringing forth righteous fruit, righteous grapes, we brought forth wild grapes because we gone off. We're planting a whore lot. Right? It says, and now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, I pray you, between me and my vineyard. Right? Talking about us. Right? It said, what could have been done more to my vineyard that have not done in it? Y'all, it says, wherefore I when I look, it should bring forth grapes, brought it forth wild grapes. Right? Because why? Jake out here wilding. Jake out here playing the hard lot, man. Jake out here following the laws and customs, the abomination of all these other ways, all these other nations. How about outside strictly gave us laws and commandments for us not to do these things of the other nations. They mingle with these other nations, right? I was going to go to Jeremiah 2. Let's go to Jeremiah 2 real fast, right? It's Jeremiah 2, and I'm going to get straight to the point, right? I'll read verse 20, right? It says, for old time I have broken thy yoke and burst thy bands, and thou sayest, I will not transgress. Take us out of captivity, right? Deliver us, right? We will say we won't go against Habashim outside no more. Guess what? Go back and do the same thing, right? It says, when every high hill and under every green tree thy wanderers playing the harlot, following all the ways, all the other nations, things instead of doing what Habashim outside told us to do, right? Just the point right here says, yet I planted thee a noble vine, a holy, a right seed, supposed to be righteous, gave us the laws, commandments, gave us laws, commandments, gave us the statutes, gave us the curriculum to follow, right? For us to, be perfect in that land, to walk in that righteous way of Yahweh, right? It says, how then art thou turned to a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? Because Yahweh can't recognize us no more. He couldn't recognize our nation no more. That's why Yahweh had to come on the scene, right? Because Yahweh couldn't recognize us no more, because you got Jake out here doing all these abominations, all these things, these other in the land the other nations was doing, which he told us not to do, which he gave us laws and commandments so we wouldn't do these things. But Jake still out here mingling themselves amongst them and doing those things. Right? So man, that's a degenerate plant. So Yahweh Shai had to come on the scene to adopt us back in. Right? Once again, this title lesson for another day, but when you understand he had to come on the scene and adopt us back in because Yahweh was done with us. Our people was bugged out, going off, mingling themselves with all type of things, right? Doing all these sorcery, all these wicked things that the other nations had going on. Which once again, what more can I do to my vineyard? Which Yahweh Shai strictly told us not to do those things, right? Let me see. I'm gonna go to the book of Ezra. I had another precept I wanted to go into before I went to Ezra. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Jeremiah 3 and verse 1, right? It says, they say, if a man put away his wife and she go from him and become another man's wife, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted, right? Because you got to understand, when a man lie with a woman, sex is marriage. So when a man lie with a woman and that woman belongs to him till he dead. As long as he's still alive, that woman go lay down with somebody else. She's considered a whore. She had that stigma of a whore. She's a harlot, for lack of better words, right? It says, shall not the land be greatly polluted? But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers, right? Because you wouldn't take her back. You wouldn't take her back. The woman go do those things. You wouldn't take her back. Ultimately, she would be punishment to death. That's adultery, right? It says, but thou hast played the harlot with many lovers, talking about Israel. They have played the harlot with many lovers, going out these worshiping these idols, doing these abominations of the other nation, right? It says, yet return again unto me, said the Lord Yahweh Shai. Even though we out here doing all these things, Yahweh Shai brought us back in through Yahweh Shai, right? But beginning with the elect. Once again, Isaiah chapter 1, it was for that remnant we would be destroyed. But Yahweh Shai brought us back in through the adoption, right? Beginning with the elect, because why? We had it brought back in because Jake made himself a strange plant. He done mingled himself with all these other nations. He done mingled himself with all these other people. He done gone off bad. Jake done gone astray. They're falling away. Jake out here bugged out. Jake out here doing all these things. See, look at Jake today. Jake bugged out even more out this fornication of Babylon, man. They lost. Right? That's why Yahweh Shai said, I come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Our people was lost as a people. Our people are lost. That the elect, the only ones who understand who we are, right? Understand that, we're the chosen people of Yahweh Shai who truly understand it. Yes, someone might speak about it and know about it, but they don't truly understand it, right? Because if they did, it would depart, get out the ways of the other nations, get out the ways of the other people, right? Micah 2 and 10 is going to lead you to a sword of destruction, right? Go right here to Ezra. Slack you. That's why Esau keep you so bound up in the way he do, right? Because you got to think, in Jeremiah 51, it talks about how, Esau don't feel like he's doing nothing wrong because, like you say, they don't win against their power. So we ain't doing nothing wrong to them. They not already disrespect their power, right? That's why Esau loves to keep you down, keep you deceived, keep you confused, right? Because the Lord willing, we're gonna get back to that. We're gonna get back to that perfection of beauty, right? We're gonna get back to being in that royal position. And this time we ain't gonna be coming back down. And this time we're gonna be we're gonna be fully righteous. We're gonna be perfect. We're gonna be purified, right? We're gonna be purified. That's why we're the saints. We're gonna be purified, man. Only the Israelites can be purified, right? We're gonna be purified and made perfect in spiritual bodies with a lost conversion in our hearts and minds. So ain't gonna be no more going up. Right? That's why the scriptures tell you the glory of the former house is not compared to the latter house, right? Because we were glorious back then, we was perfect back then, but we failed because of our wicked ways. With this time in the house in the kingdom to come, we ain't gonna have no more wickedness upon us. This flesh gonna be gone. We're gonna be in spiritual bodies and we're gonna be perfect, right? We're gonna be perfect. And all these other nations, instead of how Jake done went out here and mingled themselves with all these other nations gonna have to follow laws and commandments of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. That's gonna be the standard. That's gonna be what's set. It's like it should have been before, right? But a prophecy got to happen, right? But now it's going to be set in the kingdom, right? It's going to be set in the kingdom, and the elect, those 144,000 men we have Yahweh Shai, they're setting that standard today. I'm gonna keep reiterating that. They're the ones who setting that standard here today, right now. The standard of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Walking those true oracles, the righteous way of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Right? So this Ezra chapter 9, right? And starting at verse 1, right? It says, now when these things were done, the princes came to me saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, right? Doing according to their abominations, right? This is the problem, right? This is the problem, right? Yeah, they in the land, but they doing, because you got to think, a lot of the other nations were established on the earth before. Because when Jacob went into Israel, it was 70 souls who went with him. A lot of the other nations was established, right? So, yeah, we replenished our nation, well, with Israel, you lay down with women of the nation. That's not the problem. The problem is right here, right? It's that they have not separated themselves from the people of the lands. How we separate ourselves? By walking in the ordinance and commandments of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, the statute of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. But instead of them doing that, instead of doing according to their abominations, right? We start doing what they got going on, which Yahweh Shem Yahushua told us not to do, right? He says, even on the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites, right? It says, matter of fact, if I'm going to go back, I'm going to read Deuteronomy 71 real fast, right? It says, when thou, the Lord Yahweh thy power shall bring thee into the land where thou goes to possess it, has cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And the Lord Yahweh thy power shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them, utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor shew mercy unto them. In 1 Maccabees chapter 11, what they say? They made a covenant with the heathen. They made a covenant with the heathen because they wanted to see, Jake wanted to be seen righteous in the sight of men. Jake want men to look at him well. Jake want men to look at him as perfect instead of, Yahweh Shem Yahushua. That's why you got to understand, though, when you come into the truth as a baby, tell you, Hebrews 5 and 12, before you can teach, you got to be retaught. You got to be retaught the first oracle of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. What's the first oracle? Tell you in Peter. I think it's 1 Peter. Right? The first oracle is what? Giving honor and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And everything we do, make sure Yahweh Shem Yahushua get the honor and glory, man. Jake out here wanting the glory of himself. He want everybody to look at him glory. He want everybody to look at him big and bad. Right? It says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughters shall thou not take it to thy son. Not saying that you can't have a woman from other nation. Yahweh Shem Yahushua, I was just saying, don't, it ain't expedient for you to do that. Why? It says, for they will turn away thy son from following me, which what happened with Solomon. Right? Solomon's a perfect example of that. It ain't the problem with you having wives from other nations. It's just that what? You start doing look how it is today. Happy wife, happy life. Things like that. Right? You start doing the custom ways of, you start, you know how men are. They start wanting to make their women happy. Right? They start doing the custom ways, doing the things of what the women want, trying to please the women, trying to please women, trying to keep a woman happy, for lack of better words, right? It's what they would turn away their son from following me, that they may serve other gods, which, once again, King Solomon's an example of that, right? He's making the temples to the idols of those women of other nations he was married to, man, right? It says, so those women turn his heart away from Yahweh Shem Yahushua. It says, so would the anger of the Lord be kindled, Lord Yahweh be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But this shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. Right? Here's the point. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power. How are we holy? Right? We're going to hold that. Deuteronomy 76, we're going to hold that. Let's go right here real fast. Romans 7 and 12, quick precept, right? It says, wherefore the law is holy and the commandment holy and just and good. Well, holy means separate, right? So the law is holy and separate. How you think that we're made holy? Deuteronomy 76. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power. Lord Yahweh thy power. How? Because what? He gave us the laws, commandments, right? The Lord Yahweh, thy power, hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So what made us separate from them? He gave us the laws, commandments of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, right? Which which he only gave to Israel. Psalms 147, right? He only gave it to Israel. He didn't give it to no other nation. Only nation of Israel he gave laws covenants to. He said he had dealt with no other nation, right? So let's go back to Ezra. Let's go back to Ezra chapter 9, right? Verse 1 again says, now when these things were done, the princes came to me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according to their abominations, even the Canaanites, the Hittites, right? But we not just read about them, Deuteronomy 71, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Egyptians, and the Amorites. For they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves, they have mixed themselves with the people of those lands. Yeah, the hand, the prince and the rulers have been chiefs and trespassers. So they taking these women, marrying them, doing the marriage customs of these women, whatever nation these women from. They marrying these women who got kids with men from other nations. Those are bastards. Things they doing these abominations. They doing a custom. They doing according to their abominations, man. They going off, right? They going off, right? I want to say it's Hebrews 10. I mean, Ezra chapter 10. Right here, right? Ezra chapter 10, right? And I'm trying to see where I want to start. Well, I'll read verse 10 and 11 real fast, right? It says, and Ezra the priest stood up and said unto them, ye have transgressed and have taken strange wives to increase the trespass of Israel. Now therefore make confession unto the Lord Yahweh power, right, of your fathers, and do his pleasure, right? What quick precept. That's a fire precept, right? That's a fire scripture right there. Cause what's the precept to go with that, right? And Baruch, right? Things that are pleasing to the Most High made known unto us. So do his pleasure. The things that are pleasurable to him, they're made known unto us. He gave us the ways to walk in those laws and commandments to do the things that are pleasing unto him, right? It says, and separate yourselves from the people of the land. How we do that? Walk in the statutes and commandments of Yahweh and Yahweh, right? Instead, Jake them mingled themselves and got caught up in all these other ways, man, going off in front of strange wives, man. So they going off, right? I think there's another precept in here. Let's see. Might be Ezra 8. Bear with me. Nah, I think that was the one. Yeah, that was the one, man. So, quick another precept that just come to mind real fast. Jeremiah 2, Jeremiah 10 and 2 said, this saith the Lord Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not despised at the side of heaven, for the heathen are despised at them, right? So he said, for the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth the tree out of the forest, the work of his hand, of the workman with the axe, right? So the point is, really verse 2, right? Learn not the way of the heathen. But Jake went and learned those ways, right? Jake went and learned those ways, man. What's that precept for it, Maccabee? Let me see real fast. Right here, right? This first Maccabees 1, right? And I'll get straight to the point. In verse 11, talking about how those wicked men went out presenting the people. Saying that, matter of fact, I read verse 11. It says, in those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, man. So they going off, right? We already got a covenant with Yahweh, so they want to go make a covenant with the heathen. That's how we broke the first covenant. But that's why we ain't in the second covenant yet. But the second covenant is going to be made perfect. That's why Yahweh Shah adopted us back in. Because the Most High was done when I asked for all this bullshit. And we was at variance, man. We was at disagreement. We had an agreement. A covenant, we had an agreement with Yahweh Shah. We broke that agreement, right? If you got an agreement with somebody, you break that agreement, they're not going to want to deal with you no more. Yahweh Shah ain't want to deal with us. So he had to make a second covenant. And that second covenant, right? Only thing that happened in that second covenant is Yahweh Shah laying down for us. Right? He's the ultimate sacrifice for us. And in the kingdom, Lord, we made perfect. right? The laws, commandments gonna be written in the hearts and minds. That's why the scripture say you're gonna load, right? The scripture said we're gonna load, right? You got Jake gonna load, because he gonna look back and see like, damn, but I was tripping, I was going off, right? Because Jake bugged out. You don't see you went against how about shot just to be cool, to look amongst these wicked ass people, look cool amongst wicked ass people, man. Jake bugged out, man. Right? But he said, make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, but since we departed from them, we had much sorrow, and that's what Jake don't understand. Right? Jake want to have it all nice and good, and right now it's not fit for us right now. We're not in our homeland. When we get in our homeland, we're going to be, I watched an elders lesson the other day. Elder Pastor Kabar had quoted something, Lord willing. It's really a title of a lesson, man. I might go into Lord and Spirit leads, but these other nations, they never see this their salvation. You see all these other nations, and especially East, they're set down on this earth, man. The nation of Israel is the one, the nation of Israel and whole, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. We the ones who be facing all this persecution, this judgment, this hardship, but we supposed to. Slaki had received a phone call, they interrupted, Slaki. But as I was saying, we supposed to go through hardship, we supposed to go through suffering, supposed to go through pain. That's part of us will make us those joint heirs, man. With Yahweh and Shah. But Jake rather have it all good and holly jolly now, man. Jake want pleasure for himself now. That's why Yahweh and Shah got to get rid of his flesh. The spirit is willing, the flesh is weak. Like Jake move in the flesh, man. He move off his feeling, he move off his heart. The heart deceitful, man. We gotta move spiritually, you gotta walk circumspect, man. Right? Really kind of made a point. Well, we got a quick closing pre. Let's see. It really kind of made the point, man. Jake Mingled says the other nations, but Lord willing in the kingdom. Right, in the kingdom, right, laws gonna be written in the hearts and minds, man. So, they gonna return back and walk in those ordinances of Yahweh Shai, man. By the fact, the Spirit leading me, right? I was just looking at Hebrew, we'll read this, right? He was speaking of the second covenant, right? It's Hebrews 8, and I'll get straight to the point. I started verse 8. It says, for finding fault with them, he says, behold, the days will come. It's like, behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh. Will I make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant. We broke that covenant, and I regarded them not, said the Lord. For this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord Yahweh. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a power. They shall be to me a people, man. So that new covenant, you're going to get all these covenant ways that we done fell into, or Jake done fell into the other nations, and the kingdom, Yahweh get rid of all that. All that's going to be gone, right? The laws are going to be written in your hearts and minds. You're going to return back to Yahweh Shah. That's all he's telling you now. He let they return back, because if you don't, you're going to be destroyed right with these other nations, right? So that being said, Lord willing, hope the lesson was edifying and exalting. Right now, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, and Kakadash. Double honor unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the hopefully elect, all down there 44,000.